Another thing we need to do is one of the very important things is right now we don't have this keyboard all the time up because I'm using, in my case, I'm using the hardware keyboard. But of course, when the user is using the application, there is no hardware keyboard. It has to have this screen keyboard. So let's say you click on a view here, text field, the keyboard appears, then you type something and then you decide like you are in the login view. I say, oh, I don't have an account, I need to register, but the register sign up button is somewhere here and there is no way to hide this keyboard. So what we are going to do is to implement a function that will hide our keyboard whenever our user taps the background. Let's go ahead and do that here after our setup text fields, or where is it, the setup? Yeah. So I'm going to put this call private func setup background tab, and we're going to call this function inside our view.did_load. So as soon as we load, we want to set up the background tab. And how this works is we're going to create a tap gesture recognizer and assign it to our view. And every time our user taps the background, this gesture recognizer will be recognize the gesture. And we are going to write a specific function that will fire up. And all we want to do when the function is fired up is to hide our keyboard. So let's do that. Let's create a tap gesture is equals to UI tap gesture recognizer, and this one is asking for a target and action. The target is going to be self because this is the self view that we want to be the target. Action is the name of the function we want to call. So I'm going to just say # selector, and this is again at obj_c method. I'm going to call this background tab, and straight away we are going to receive an error because this function doesn't exist. You can open up, it says cannot find background tab in scope, which means that there is no such function that you are trying to call. But we're going to ignore it now because we're going to call it, write the function just in a second. What I want to do is to take this tap gesture and apply it to my view. So I will access my view, which is basically this white area, everything we have in the background. And I will say add gesture recognizer, and I will pass my tab gesture here. So this way we have our tab view. And then let's write underneath at obj_c func, and let's copy the name from here, paste it here, and now every time our user taps this background, this function will fire. Let's say print background tab, and let's run this. Now if I click anywhere, let me just open this up, delete everything from inside. If I tap, it says background tab. Anywhere I tab where is background, not something else, it will fire up. So now instead of just printing some in our console, we want to do some actual work. So I will access my view and I will ask it to end editing. Force, we say false. Basically what this does is it disables the keyboard for any view that has currently called the keyboard, because in our case it may be 3 text fields that are showing the keyboard. If we don't do it this way, you have to specifically find which keyboard is currently the first responder, and ask it to remove itself from first responder. But this one, it doesn't care who is the view that is showing the keyboard. It will just go ahead and make it go away. So let's see how it works. So we show our keyboard and just tap it and it disappears. Now I have access to my view here that I can play around. And again, I write something, I just tap and it goes away. So our hide keyboard function is working as well. And now let's see what our functionality our view will have. Let's say we are in login. My user comes and clicks on login button straight away without putting any information. This is not allowed because we want to only proceed with login whenever we have an email and password in place, or we want to proceed with sign up whenever we have email, password, and repeat password in place. And for forgot button should be working only when the user has an email address added. So let's say the user forgot his password, he puts his email and clicks on a password and it tells it, okay, we will send you a new password reset email. But if there is nothing here, we want to tell the user, you know, you are clicking on a register button, but you haven't inputted this information, which is required. So let's do a function that is actually going to be clever enough to tell our user what kind of error we should show him. So the function's duty is to check if the data was inputted for specific scenario. So we have three scenarios: the login scenario, the registration, or forgot password scenario. And depending on these three scenarios, we are going to check what information our user has inputted or no. So let's create a function, put a mark here, call this helpers. And I'm going to write a function called it private func is data inputted for, and we're going to pass a type here. And this is a string, and we're going to return a boolean. So it's either the data is inputted or no. So this is the result, true or false. And the type, we are going to just tell for which type we are going to return things. So we have three different options. I'm going to use a switch statement on my type here. And in case if we are passing a login, this will be the case for our login. Then we will have a case for registration. And we will have a default case because if it's neither of these, it means it's the repeat password, forgot password issue. So if we are sending a type login here, what we want to do for our login, we are required to have two parameters, email and password. So let's see if our email and password are completed, have some information in it. So we say a return email text field dot text is not equals to empty string, and password text field dot text is not equals to empty string. So if we are in email, please check and return the value. If both of these are true, we are going to return true. If any of this is false, we're going to return false, that no data is not inputted for our login. Here I'm missing a string quotation. For our registration, it's the same, plus we need to say and repeat password text field dot text not equals to empty string. And for the default, which is our forgot password, I'm going to say a return, and we will say email text field dot text not equals to empty string, right? Because here we need only to have something in our email. So let's see where we are going to call this function. The function, every time we click on any of the buttons, so if I go to my 3 buttons here, I can go here and do it like fast way, IB actions, or you can use the navigation map here. So we have the login button. Whenever our user clicks on login button, we want to check if the data is inputted. So we say if is data inputted for, and here we are going to have it dynamically because login button is the same for sign up and login. We have one button, we are just switching the images there. So this function will be called no matter which button user clicks, because it's only one button with different images. So here is where our isLogin comes in. We are going to check if we are in login mode or we are in registration mode. So I will say type is login, and it's an if statement. So if we are in login mode, we want to send it login, and otherwise we are going to send register. And if the data is inputted, then we have else. It means our data is not inputted. So let's notify the user. And to notify the user, we are going to use progress AGT, and let's import it. And here I'm going to say progress AGT dot show failure. And we are going to pass a string that we want to show, and I'm going to say all fields are required. Right, and if data is inputted, we are going to here say login or register. Again, depending on what mode we are going to log in the user or register. Forgot password, I'm going to copy this and put it here, and instead of is data inputted for, here I'm going to just pass my password. And this will show me for the password, and instead our error message will be email is required. And let's have a resend. This one we check also. Let's copy this, paste it here, and for resend we're passing our password because this is what we need in order to resend our email. So for the password, it's gonna fall to default value, and it's gonna be our email. So whenever our user clicks on a resend verification email, the email text field should be completed. So that's why we just pass a password there, which is our third default. And here again, we are just saying email is required in both cases. And instead, I'm going to put a comment here, say resend verification email, and forgot password is, we're going to say reset password. This is a comment out. All right, let's put some print here, see if this works. And we say have data for login register, and we say here have data for forgot password, and finally for our resend email and let's run our application. We open up here some space, delete everything. All right, so let me come and straight away click this. It says all fields are required, which is good. Let's put some information and try to log in. It says have data for login registration, which is good. Let's do the forgot password. It says have data, because all we need for the password is the email address. It has data. And if we don't have anything, it says email is required. Right, the third button I cannot test because it's currently hidden, but trust me, if these two are working, the third one is working as well. So our user interface is working. Let's just switch this and try now. It says all fields are required. I just put some tiny text here. It says have data for login. So this is working as well. Right. The next thing we will do is write our code for login, registration, etc.